partner with Axon, you immediately gain access to a full range of products and solutions designed to meet the complex needs of today's grower. We carry all major brands and sizes of tires and wheels. We specialize in large diameter wheels for large equipment. We have one of the largest OEM replacement wheel inventories in North America. Known for extreme flotation setups, duals, and triples, we have wheels for all makes and models of tractors, sprayers, combines, and grain carts. If we don't have the wheel in stock, we'll custom build, sandblast, and paint in-house. There isn't a more vast inventory in North America dedicated to helping dealers move more iron. With facilities on the West Coast and in the heart of the Midwest, leverage our 230,000 square feet of indoor inventory to solve any problem a grower may have. Move more iron with Axon.
Moving iron.
Hello and welcome to Moving Iron Podcast. Markest with Shawn Hackett. This edition of Moving Iron Podcast is brought to you by Axon Tire, helping dealers move more iron for the past 100 years. For more information, go to axontire.com. Axon Tire, I'd like to give all the loyal listeners, and Shawn, you'll probably need this when you come out here, so you can make sure you get a correct measurement of the snow that's going to fall, is a free Axon tape measure. Stick that right there in the snow and you can see exactly how much they got. So if you want one of those, send an email to marketing@axontire.com and you will be able to get one of those shipped to you ASAP. So if you want one of those, go to marketing@axontire.com. Also, if you plan on coming to the Moving Iron Summit coming here in Nashville, Tennessee, September 11th through the 13th, check out MovingIronLLC.com. In the upper right-hand corner, there's a link that says Moving Iron Summit, 2023 Moving Iron Summit. Go there, register, and if you're one of the first 150 people to do that, Axon Tire takes care of that first $50 of your registration fee. So if you're interested in doing that, go over to MovingIronLLC.com. Valley Transportation has been hauling ag and construction equipment across the country for the past 33 years. Call Parker at 800-657-4910 for all your trucking needs. At Valley Transportation, our goal is to help you reach yours. Powered by Farm Credit, Ag Direct is built for today's agriculture with simple applications, quick response, competitive rates, and generous, flexible terms. Ag Direct offers buy, lease, and refinance options for almost all types of new and used equipment. Non-recourse and timely funding back to the dealership, plus sales incentives. No other ag equipment lender works like Ag Direct. Learning more by calling your Ag Direct territory manager at 888-525-9805 or visit us at agdirect.com. Tractor Zoom has access to over $20 billion in heavy equipment sales. Tractor Zoom's Iron Comps is the industry's trusted solution for transparent equipment values and auctionable pricing insights. This podcast is also brought to you by Anvil AppWorks, or Dealer Connect CRMI app with integrated inventory management is an affordable Salesforce-based solution for your dealership. Create connected customer experience and transform how you work today. Shawn Hackett is with Hackett Financial out of Boca Raton, Florida. He's nice enough to come on and talk about what's happening. So, Shawn, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing really, really good, and I'm looking forward to going yet again back out into the West, the Great West.
Out into the West. All right, and you get to come back to some more snow. So, I mean, you can't.
A little more snow. You know, it looks like 3 degrees Wednesday night. You know, it looks like happy times for getting out on the water and going for a swim.
Yep. So actually, Shawn and I are going to be at the same thing. So we're going to have a good opportunity to catch up and probably do a podcast live together. But he's lucky he's not coming where I'm at because it's balmy, going to be balmy in Denver compared to what it's going to be in Scottsbluff. I think we have a low of 24 degrees or something like that on Wednesday night, and supposed to get anywhere between 5 inches to up to 12. So we'll see what happens there. But I also get the 50-mile-an-hour winds come along with it. So it's just,
of course,
another day in Nebraska.
When it's good, you just got to, it's really good. So
that's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. So we had a lot of stuff kind of come out. Shawn, you put out a lot of reports here over the last couple of days, and I think the one thing that we should talk about that has the most impact on what we've been talking about as far as weather patterns and how these grand solar cycles and stuff like that really kind of bring these traumatic and quick weather changes. And I think we're seeing one develop in Argentina with this flash frost. So talk about that a little bit and what you see happening there.
Remember the long-term concept of a grand solar cycle minimum, which means a 30 to 40-year period of lower solar activity, which means less of the sun's heat hitting the atmosphere, shrinking the atmosphere, creating the undulating jet stream in both the north and the south, means you get very significant changes in weather volatility in very short periods of time, whether that means drought to rain, extreme snowfall, warm to cold, cold to warm. And so in Argentina, they just completed record hot of all time. I think 100 over 110 degrees. 3 days later, they broke record low temperatures and had what's called a soft frost. 3 days, record hot to record cold. That is not something that is normal, that in a normal weather volatility environment typically takes place. And so this is an ongoing thing we're going to see more and more of, is these crazy swings and crazy surprise. I mean, no one saw that coming. No one can see that coming because the atmosphere is too unstable to make those short-term predictions. And we don't try to make those short-term predictions. As you know, Casey, we try to stick with the probabilities of what's going to happen on a 30, 60, 6-month. But though expecting the unexpected in climate is going to be a more regular feature, and every good crop all of a sudden becomes less good, because of some crazy event that just sideswipes it at the last minute. So very, very indicative of the kind of thing we're talking about, and the kind of thing we're going to see much more of as time goes on.
Yeah. So you had a couple other points you brought up here too, that in your opinion, the way this frost happened, it wouldn't be necessarily as bad as maybe some traders came out to be. I haven't had a minute to check my overnight to see where soybeans were acting, but you can see some very knee-jerk reaction to this, I'm sure, and that would definitely fly this up real quick, and it could catch some people on the backside down. It could really catch some people off guard.
Well, you just have to remember, this is like late July for Argentina, for like Iowa. So even though it was super cold, record cold, and even though they had some areas that were borderline freezing, it's not the kind of cold that you would require to really dent significant further damage to the crop beyond what has already been done from the drought. So, I mean, obviously it doesn't help the crop. I mean, that's not like that's going to improve the crop prospects, but to say that it's going to dramatically reduce the crop prospects from what they already were, or where they were already heading based upon the ongoing drought, not really. So to the extent that traders are trading this specific event, I don't believe it still comes down to how much is the drought really going to hurt the yields, for the rest of the growing season there. I don't believe this particular frost is going to be particularly noteworthy. Having said that, I think it does warn everybody, that as we get further on into the latter part of the growing season for Argentina and for Brazil, by the way, maybe this is a sign that, we might get some more flash frost risks in that region, when it would matter more, and when seasonally it could be cold enough. So I almost view it as more of a, not as an event that hurt anything, but maybe as a warning sign that we need to be on guard, that the atmosphere is so unstable right now based upon this crazy jet stream and the sun-struck warming. I mean, we just have a very unstable jet stream that we might need to be keeping our eyes peeled for more of these flash frost events that would occur at a time that would be more detrimental. This one was not.
Yep. So you had a report that you put out yesterday, and one of the things on your kind of your executive summary that you have there on the front page, you said the multi-year La Nina that transitions to El Nino has some very clear teleconnections worth noting, and one of them being which Russia drought risk, both spring and winter wheat, India drought risk for wheat and sugar and rice, as well as West African drought risk for cocoa. So that's a big flip from what we've seen over the last couple of years in that area, where they've had significant rain, and they were able to grow some very massive crops. But, I mean, thankful for all that to happen, because if it wasn't for India and what they were, sending out through the world through wheat and various other products, a lot of places would be in really bad shape right now when it came to exports and what that looks like around the world. All that being said, what we see here now, if this glyphosate cycle does come in 23 and not 24, 25, with the state that we're in right now. And, India's been talking a lot about shutting some exports down of various products or various refined products of wheat and those kind of things. As you're looking at that, Shawn, are you starting to see any of that start to develop? And I guess what are your thoughts thus far?
Well, in the report yesterday, we talked about all the multi-year La Ninas that entered the transition year. It doesn't mean that El Nino came, by the summer. It just means it transitioned towards El Nino later in the year or into the following year. And they were 1911, 1918, 1951, 1957, 1976, and 2001. Those were all your multi-year La Ninas that then went into a transition year. And so we know La Nina causes a Walker cycle that produces a lot of moisture in Asia, which includes Russia, includes India, includes Southeast Asia. And we know that the two things that have kept the ag system from completely getting into a more extreme food shortage, Casey, has been India's big production because of all the rain that they've had, and Russia's big wheat crop last year, because they tend to have favorable weather with La Nina. So if we're clearly entering a weakening phase of La Nina. There's a lot of argument about when El Nino is going to arrive. Our work says it'll arrive later in the year versus the summer. Either way, it means that we're going to see Asia dry out. It means we're going to see India dry out, Russia, Ukraine dry out, Southeast Asia dry out. And so what that means to me is wheat and rice, your two most important commodities that keep the world fed, that keep the world from panicking, are those important regions are going to get into a less favorable weather pattern. One of the other things that we follow specifically for India is something called the Indian Ocean Dipole, which is a measure of the sea surface temperatures on either side of India. When they're negative, it tends to produce more drought in India. When they're positive, it tends to create more rain. Normally, in a full-blown El Nino, the Indian Ocean Dipole can be either neutral or positive. So if it's positive, it helps kind of put some rain into the El Nino dryness. If it's neutral, it tends to not do that. We're expecting a neutral Indian Ocean Dipole during the monsoon season in India at a time that we're entering or moving towards El Nino. That is a very dry combination for India, and it sets the stage for some significant issues with the wheat crop that's developing now, Casey, because obviously their crop gets harvested late spring, kind of like winter wheat. And of course, has a huge impact on the potential for the rice crop there. Remember, China had a failed rice crop last year. And if India, the two biggest rice producing countries in the world, has a problem with rice this year, we might lose our final line in the sand that's been keeping the ag system intact. I'm not looking forward to that, but that's what the cycles are suggesting, to really watch India and Russia, south that winter wheat belt of southern Russia, and then the spring wheat belt of more of that western Russia, southwest Russia area. Those are really going to be hot spots if they get into trouble, because we don't have a lot of ending stocks to back them up right now. Now in the U.S., as you correctly talked about, normally a transition year is sort of a hodgepodge for the U.S. normally, meaning it isn't great, it can be okay. But as you know, we have this Gleisberg cycle, 89-year cycle that's due 23, 24, 25. And if the El Nino does get delayed until later in the year, as our work says is more probable, that could trigger this year. We will know more, have a much better handle on that as we get into the spring in terms of exactly how El Nino progresses. But obviously, if we were to get India and Russia in trouble, and then of course we would start to have drought problems resurface again in the U.S. when we already have one of the worst rated winter wheat crops, since we've been recording it. That sets up the wheat rice complex as an area or as a grouping to watch very, very carefully as you move into the season, because the weather does not look good for those crops. And as goes rice and wheat, so goes food prices and the psychology over food shortages around the world.
Right. Okay. All right, Shawn, as you were taking a look at some of the stuff that was in your report here, we've talked about this for quite a bit and I spent a lot of time on this, but a couple of markets of interest, I think, that really stand out to me that I think are good opportunities for folks. One is natural gas, as far as kind of locking down some energy stuff, and then you had coffee on there as stuff that might be as an opportunity. Let's spend a little time talking about coffee, and with this Argentine drought that see happening out there. Is there some coffee at risk, and is there an issue there similar to what we saw a couple of years ago when you went down to Brazil and took a look at some of that frost reaction that we saw down there?
Well, I think we have to understand what's happened in South America. The Argentine weather pattern is being driven by this extremely hot sea surface temperature off their east coast, and it's causing sort of a permanent, semi-permanent high. Brazil's been very, very wet, excessively wet. I mean, just persistent rainfall, because we're in what's called the La Nina Mordecai, which means you have cold sea surface temperatures in the Central Pacific, warm temperatures on each side. That changes the Walker cycle. Cold air sinks and it moves where the water is warm. So it's pumping moisture into Brazil. So for coffee specifically, coffee needs rainfall, of course, like every crop does, but it needs breaks of sunshine. It needs to dry out. It needs that period of growth. And it's been excessively persistently wet in central Brazil for months now. So that is causing the crop to develop unfavorably now. So where we're at is the triple frost, Casey, that we had several years ago continues to recover very slowly, and the blooming phase, the flowering phase that we had this past fall did not go off as well as it was supposed to because of the longer term stress and damage to the trees. And now we've thrown excessive rainfall on top of it. A recent crop tour just finished, a really 1 month long crop tour that we follow, and suggests that the total crop production in Brazil is going to be fairly similar to last year. And that means it will be a third year of a deficit. We view modern day times in agriculture post 1965. We're not aware of any period since 1965 that we've had 3 deficit years in a row in coffee in Brazil. And this is going to be year 3. So, and even though the prospects for the crop that's going to be harvested in the summer of 24 look good, it's a long way to get there. And we just don't feel that the market's going to be able to manage this kind of a 3-year shortage without having to do some recalibration to the upside to factor it in. And of course, there could be additional weather volatility coming. Can you imagine, Casey, if we get into the frost season in July in Brazil, and if there's even just a frost scare at a time that we've had 3 deficits? I mean, we know what happened a few years back and how much it set the market off when we had plenty of supplies. What happens if we get a frost scare and the market already knows we have very little supply? You know, the situation is extremely fragile and could cause some significant spikes to the upside depending on how everything plays out. So it's definitely a market that we feel people have to be paying attention to. Roasters have to be managing the risks to the upside. It's just not a market that you want to be that you want to be exposed to upside price risk, because in a situation like this, it would not take much to push this market into something like we saw in orange juice just recently, where we had a supply squeeze trade where we went limit up for 3 or 4 days in a row and had a wild spike trade. It wouldn't surprise me that a similar situation may develop in coffee given the right circumstances. So
right on. Okay. Well, I think it's a good place to stop, Shawn. Folks want to reach out to you and get more information about what you're doing over at Hackett Financial. What's the best way to do that?
Our website is Hackett, HACKETT advisors.com. Lots of information on there. We also sometimes post some things on our Twitter page at Faradex11. And we also do the same thing on our LinkedIn page. You can search Shawn Hackett or Hackett Financial Advisors. And so from time to time, we post interviews or updates on some of these cycles for those that are interested in this information for their operations, to keep tabs of what's going on.
Right on. And it's a FERDEX 11, right? That's how you spell that?
It's FERIDEX at 11.
IDEX. Okay.
I mean 11 at FERDEX 11. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Right on. Okay. Shawn, appreciate you being on the podcast, man. Look forward to seeing you, man.
Sounds good, Casey. See you tomorrow.
All right, buddy. I'm Casey Seymour with Moving Iron Podcast. Check me out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Moving Iron LLC. Go to LinkedIn at Moving Iron Podcast and check out the video version of this over at the YouTube channel, Moving Iron Podcast. So check that out. Go to Moving Iron LLC for everything Moving Iron related and get more information about the Moving Iron Summit coming up here in Nashville, Tennessee. Just signed a good speaker I'm looking forward to. His name's Sean Glass. He's a retired Navy SEAL. He's going to talk a little bit about what he sees happening out there with some leadership stuff sprinkled in there. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that looks like. If you want to get some more information about registration, go to MovingIronLLC.com. Upper right-hand corner, click on the 2023 Moving Iron Summit tab. Click that, fill that out, and take advantage of that Axon Tire $50 discount for the first 150 people that show up. So with that, I'm Casey Seymour with Shawn Hackett. Move some iron, folks. Out.
Moving iron in the 21st century.